We have won the Great War. Now we will win the last war. We'll rip her out root and stem.
We hope to kind of avoid the expected, and Jon Snow has always been the hero, the one who's been the savior, but it just didn't seem right to us for this moment. We knew it had to be Valyrian steel to the exact spot where the Child of the Forest put the Dragonglass blade to create the Night King, and he's uncreated by the Valyrian steel. At the end of it, it's a victory for the living, but at great cost because some of our favorite characters fall along the way.
Hi everyone, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 4 trailer video, talking about the next big war, as Daenerys is calling it during the trailer, The Last War. There's still so much stuff going on. We've got the Game of Thrones prequel that's coming up too, so be sure to subscribe to get all the Game of Thrones videos. I know there are a lot of questions after last night's episode. There are a couple more bonus videos that I have planned about that, but I'm also doing the Q&A video. And there's a new round of that HBO Now giveaway too. All you have to do to enter that is be a subscriber and leave a comment on the video. Obviously, careful for spoilers for everything through episode 3. So here we go. We'll just start with the footage. So this very Daenerys and Cersei-centric trailer is all Daenerys' voiceover from a couple different speeches, or maybe just one speech broken up into a couple different pieces, because there's only one part of the trailer where you actually see her speaking the words. But it's all about the aftermath and them sort of cleaning up the battlefield. You see them burning the bodies in here too. It's gonna stink to high heaven around Winterfell until all those bodies are gone. The whole idea here, as Daenerys says, is we've won the Great War, as they talked about it, the war against the Night King and the White Walkers. Now we will win the last war. And she's absolutely determined. She even puts herself in a very deep Targaryen red dress, which is interesting because Cersei is also wearing a very deep red dress. Without listening to the costume designer explain why she made those choices, why those colors in particular, because Targaryens do wear red, so it's not unusual for Daenerys to wear a red dress. But it is kind of interesting that she wears red because it's the color of blood, even though House Targaryen's motto is fire and blood, right after the Battle of Winterfell when they shed all that blood, because you basically lost all of the Dothraki. There's still Dothraki in the east that did not side with Daenerys and come over. It's really just her blood riders that she lost, but they're completely gone. They lost most of their forces, most of the Unsullied as well. Usually after something like that, you wear black, which is also a Targaryen color, because you're in mourning for all the people that you lost. Like, she'd be in mourning for Ser Jorah because she cared about him so much, even though it wasn't actual romantic love. You see her in the red dress toasting everyone in the Great Hall because they're obviously really excited that they all survived. They finally won the war. Now it's time to get ready for the next one. You could draw all kinds of metaphors about the Red Wedding, Arya's reverse Red Wedding, all the red blood that they're going to be shedding during the last war, which it seems like might be most of episode 5, although I don't think that the battle will be quite as big as the Battle of Winterfell, just in terms of a production. Biggest difference in the next big battle is that it'll probably take place during daytime, hopefully, so you'll actually be able to see what's going on, and because of that, geographically it'll be much easier to place yourself. Whereas it seemed like the Battle of Winterfell was the biggest that the show had ever done, it may have actually taken place over a much smaller area, because Winterfell, even though it's a huge castle, isn't nearly as big as the Red Keep and King's Landing. Daenerys says they'll rip Cersei out root and stem. I guess that she's the root and Euron is the stem, because it seems like Euron is proposing to her in this trailer, and she'll probably wind up accepting, because even if she doesn't like him that much, she still needs his help, so she needs to keep that alliance intact. So as Stannis Baratheon would say, go ahead, do your duty. Like when he was talking to Brienne, he knew what was about to happen, and even though it wasn't going to be pleasant, he knew that it had to go down that way. Cersei's backed herself into a corner, and now she's doing everything she can to keep her House of Cards from collapsing. You get a really good shot of the smoldering remains of Winterfell post-battle the next morning. Like I said, they'll probably reflect this in the opening credits. Cersei and Euron looking down at the commoners in King's Landing, walking around in the square, giving you a really big look at the front gate. That'll be important for the next big battle episode. Like they did for Winterfell, they built all these new King's Landing sets because they're going to be using them way more than they have in previous seasons. Most of their King's Landing city shots are filmed in and around Dubrovnik in Croatia, but a lot of the big battle stuff that they're getting ready to film at King's Landing, they filmed on their Titanic set. They had to build special sets just because of what they're doing during the battle. We don't know exactly how the battle's going to go down, but we do have a broad idea, and we know finally we're going to get to see the Golden Company in action. You see Sansa watching the Northerners as they clean up the battlefield and start to repair the worst damage to Winterfell. It's going to take them a long time to rebuild Winterfell, but it's not nearly as destroyed as I expected it to be. I knew that some of the castle would be left, but when you saw the Night King use Viserion to just plow right through one of the walls towards the end of the episode, I expected a lot more of that. But Viserion did spend like the last at least 10 minutes of the episode just breathing blue flame all over the courtyard. The weird thing about the way they cut the trailer too is it seems like everyone is headed down to King's Landing on Daenerys' ships eventually, but based on the misleading way that they cut this, it seems like Sansa might not go back to King's Landing with them, which would be interesting because she did vow a long time ago never to go back just because her time with Joffrey, with the Lannisters was so bad, she never ever wanted to return. So you guys can let me know in the comments, just assuming that this trailer is misleading, do you think that Sansa actually will go back to King's Landing before the end of the season? Because remember, even though we have this episode 5 big battle coming up, we don't know exactly everything they're going to be doing during the finale, and the finale is going to be one of their longest episodes ever. You see Daenerys walking around the halls of Winterfell in that deep red dress. You see Rhaegal fly over Daenerys' ships as they're sailing for King's Landing. You also see Rhaegal and Drogon flying over Sansa, standing on the battlements of Winterfell. So confirmed to both be alive and well, none the worse for wear. I know a lot of people were wondering what happened to Rhaegal after he and Jon Snow went down. It seemed like he was still alive, and unless you see a body, you can't really say yes or no, because there have been a couple deaths that happened off screen. Summer sacrificed himself to allow them to get away. You didn't exactly see him die, so it seemed like it happened off screen. So I think everybody was kind of worried, especially until we saw Ghost in this trailer too, very good boy, who also shows up outside, that we didn't know whether or not they killed him off screen too, because he ran to the assault with the Dothraki and Ser Jorah at the beginning of the episode, but you never really saw him come back, so everyone was just kind of crossing their fingers. Speaking of which, I don't think that Ghost would be down for Carrion or the dragons either. There still is food for them to eat up there, and now that they have maybe a fraction of their troops, it's not like they're going to run out of their food faster. They haven't actually taken a head count yet either, for those of you that are asking how many of their troops are left. But you get shots of Sansa, Arya, Jon Snow, the rest of the survivors standing outside while we're getting that Daenerys voiceover, which is probably coming from a different scene. You see Daenerys speaking the second part of her quote though, talking about ripping Cersei out Rudin's stem inside their planning room there, so maybe that whole speech just comes from this one scene. There's a scene of Daenerys checking on Drogon. I love the look on his face. It's almost like he's smiling, a big dragon, toothy smile at something. But because Daenerys is looking up in the sky, they're both probably looking at Rhaegal and maybe Jon on Rhaegal. So she's probably just relieved that both of her children are still alive. There's a scene of Arya kissing Gendry later that night. It'll be interesting to see, now that the survivors have sort of found each other and they're starting to clean things up, how much post-battle sex happens during this episode. A lot of you remember that Robert Baratheon quote from season 1 in the pilot when he said, "I have a son, you have a daughter," to Ned Stark, let's get them together. Well, you can actually still do that with Arya and Gendry now, depending on how you think they wind up. It'll be funny to see how Cersei reacts to Gendry if they wind up in a scene together, knowing that one of Robert's bastards still exists out there. There's a scene of Jon Snow and Davos riding out the front gate of Winterfell with Gilly watching behind them in the courtyard. Then they end the trailer with a shot of Cersei, Euron, and the Mountain outside looking over something, maybe either watching Daenerys' ships roll in or maybe just watching the people of King's Landing go about their business while they plan for the next big attack. But either way, the whole trailer is just meant to give you the aftermath of the Battle of Winterfell and the preparation for the battle against Cersei. So like I said, I think the actual battle won't happen till episode 5, but we'll see Daenerys' ships rolling up to King's Landing at the end of episode 4. Episode 4 is only supposed to be 78 minutes long, so it's about 4 minutes shorter than episode 3, but episode 5 and the finale, episode 6, are both going to be 80 minutes long. So the last couple of episodes are actually pretty close in length, but those episode links also include the little intro, the episode recap that they attach to the beginning of episodes. They do not include the promos that they attach to the end of the episodes, because if you watch them on HBO now, they'll just roll from the episode into the bonus featurettes and stuff, so it seems like it's all part of the episode, but really it's not. I know a lot of you are still sort of reeling about the swerves, or the seeming swerves, on the prophecies Azor Ahai because of Arya killing the Night King during episode 3. There's actually a video that I have planned for that later this week, because there was a very interesting original plan that George R. R. Martin had for Song of Ice and Fire before he changed. There was going to be a big time jump, so a lot of the younger characters like Arya, Sansa, Jon Snow, by the time this stuff was happening in A Song of Ice and Fire, originally it was planned that they would be much, much older. But he wound up canceling those plans, things went down a little bit differently, but the main players were largely still the same, although a lot of the plot machinations and character relationships wound up changing. Like originally there was going to be an Arya love triangle with Jon Snow and Tyrion in the original outline that he had, so just to give you an idea for how different his original plan for Game of Thrones was. There's so much other stuff happening this week. That video probably won't post till Wednesday or Thursday, but I will also be doing a Q&A video just like I've done for previous episodes. But when it comes to Azor Ahai, there are still a couple of twists that I'm expecting that could fulfill the prophecy just in a way that you're not expecting. Like Dan and Dave say during that featurette where it was really important for them not to play to people's expectations, even though that Jon has been the main hero thus far. They didn't want him to be the one to kill the Night King. So I will try to address how much of that I think was part of George R. R. Martin's plan that he gave to Dan and Dave when they were plotting out the rest of the series, because a lot of the big beats are based on what Martin told them. And Martin actually even recently did talk about how much his ending would be similar to what they're doing on the show. So I'll talk about some of the differences that he discussed and some of the similarities, because you will be surprised by how much of it will be similar to the way that Dream of Spring and Winds of Winter are supposed to go down. But a lot of the big differences too, especially thematic differences, by the end of the finale we'll be talking about after we get episode 6. But if there are any big videos that you guys want me to do about all this, let me know in the comments. Congratulations to the last big giveaway winner, Bruno Kerhoney. Please email me on the About page on my channel so I can get your details. While you wait for everything, click here for my episode 3 video and click here for my episode 2 video. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.